Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab. I'm Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey. And I just want to clear something up straight at the outset of this podcast. At no point through this episode will I be playing the part of Leo Sayer. And Adrian will not be playing the part of Oliver Hardy. More of that to come in a little while. It'll all make sense. Honestly, trust me. Don't titter ye not. If you've never caught up with us before, this is so easy. You'll love this bit because you'll look at it, your podcast player, and you'll just go, that is just simplicity in itself. Each week, right, we alternately choose a comedy program to watch or listen to, and then we chat about, what we made of it, what we thought of it, whether we liked it, the bits we made us titter, the bits that didn't make us titter, the bits in there that didn't make us titter enough, or perhaps we had too much tittering. You never know. We'll also play you a couple of clips as well to give you a flavour, so obviously giving you the opportunity to titter as much as you want as well. And at the end of the whole proceedings, we'll give quite near the end of the whole proceedings, we'll give the programme a mark out of 5, each giving it a grand total out of 10. Although I did see a comment, and I think it was a wind-up between a husband and wife on our Facebook page the other day, where he had written something along the lines of, "Well, I don't think you can give your view if you start looking at the ins and outs of what makes something funny, then you can't really do that." And then she'd written, "Well, there's not much of a podcast left if they don't do that. Go and put the kettle on."
Do you think either of them is listening now?
Oh, I would have thought so. So it made me laugh, Sarah, anyway. So thanks for that, putting it on the Facebook page. Anyway, that's about the size of it, isn't it? It was my turn to choose last week. But before we do that, some comedy news, which is something that we tend to do, and this is what I was alluding to a few moments ago. Did you get it, by the way? The whole thing the whole shtick there.
No, see, it's like the tortoise that was attacked by a load of snails. And the police had to interview the tortoise afterwards, a kind of incident report. And do you know this one?
Is that still funny?
I haven't heard this for years, so I'm amused. I'm laughing, he's laughing. Won't you join us, dear listener? And so he's taking a report, this copper, and he says, did you get visual identification of the snails who attacked you, Mr. Tortoise? And the tortoise says, no, it was all over so quick.
I don't know what it is about those kind of jokes. I couldn't get out of my head, and I was on a bit of a rant about not the 9 o'clock news, and you can't buy on DVD complete series, it would appear, of not the 9 o'clock news. You can buy the best of compilations, but and I think that's really bad. I think they should release that into the wild and let somebody publish it.
Wild, they're livid.
But no, you see, that isn't the one for me. If somebody stopped me in the street and said not the 9 o'clock news, favourite joke, it would, a close runner up would be the hi-fi sketch.
Bag on your head.
But by far. And just because of its brevity and its construction, and the fact that it made us howl in the pub on that night once we'd watched it and then went down the pub about 9:30, was the Swedish Chemist shop.
I don't know that I've seen that one. Was it a bit hurdy-gurdy?
Well, yeah, it's Rowan Atkinson. I think it's Mel Smith behind the counter, or the other way around. I can't remember. But anyway, one of them goes in and says, "Hello, I would like to buy some deodorant, please." And the one at the counter says, "Certainly, sir. Ball or aerosol?" And he says, "Neither. It is for my armpits."
No, I do remember that. I don't know that I've ever seen it. It's one of those things that, well, I was at the pub.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the same one as you, but when someone was quoting it. So
well, that's what we used to do before video recorders, wasn't it? Was we'd all go down the pub and
to learn it.
Try to remember how many lines. Yeah, we could. Oh, what about this bit? What about this bit? But no, I was alluding to the fact that in comedy news, it was all over the place. Because is it the Telegraph that has like a sponsored thing on Twitter, and I made the mistake of kept clicking on it to see what the story was, and then realised I hadn't got a subscription, couldn't get past their paywall, and wasn't ever going to find out what it was. So I don't bother clicking it now.
Right.
But there was this story that the headline, Tamsin Gregg says that she probably shouldn't have been in Friday Night Dinner. Did you see this?
I did indeed, but I'm still trying to work out what it's got to do with Leo Sayer or, did you say Oliver
Hardy?
Stan Laurel or Oliver Hardy?
Yeah. Well, I thought, oh, right, okay, why is that? And I was horrified. I mean, really horrified to see that basically I mean, this is a grown woman to say that she shouldn't have been in Friday night dinner because she's not Jewish.
But she has Jewish ancestry.
But she's a bloody actor.
Well, I know. That's why I when I read it, I thought this is going to get your giddy goat, mate. Aye. Which is always good value because I like winding you up.
Which is why I said I wouldn't be playing Leo Sayer because obviously I wouldn't be allowed to put on a big curly wig. and you're not fat enough to play Oliver Hardy. I
thought you were going to put on clown makeup and do the must let the show go on or whatever.
I thought I had. But you don't think I dress like this normally, do you?
Maybe you're a natural clown.
They all float down here. No.
Well, we've kind of been in this territory before, but as I say, always entertaining for anything that riles you. I think you rile very entertainingly.
Thank you.
But if I can, I don't know. Have I been cast in the role of putting the opposite argument?
Well, no. I mean, we can agree. I mean, I really. I mean, to be honest with you, I shouldn't sound riled because I really don't care. I mean, if she wants to, I think she's packing in acting anyway.
You do care, though.
No, I don't. I don't, because I think the great driver with all of this is that that the audiences will decide.
Well, but we don't in practice. Look, we're not typical, and we know that. But
that's typical of you.
That's atypical of you.
Sorry.
Pointed out.
Oh yeah, it is.
Two things I'll point out immediately. She says, I probably shouldn't have been in Friday Night Dinner, not that I deeply regret it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is she does have the Jewish ancestry. But no, the point I was trying to make several sentences ago was that people don't say, I'm going to check the heritage of the actor before I watch the show.
No, but I mean, my point is if she chooses not to take work, because I mean, she also mentioned she'd like to play Cleopatra, but she doesn't feel that she can. Because she doesn't look like she came from that area of the world, I think is the quote, if we're to believe the article.
But
But my point is that, well, if you don't, that's your living you're giving up. Nobody else is. And, you know, audiences will decide whether whoever replaces you or whoever does it is good enough or not, or whether they're interested to see it. I mean, there's a lot of things. It's like the world of podcasting is fascinating. I see, as you probably do as well, jobs being advertised. Do they want a producer for this podcast, a producer for that podcast? And you look at some of the content of the podcast. It's a podcast featuring. I'm not going to go into it because that's a whole new level of conversation. But it's a podcast featuring, focusing on this, and this. And I think, who the hell's going to watch or listen to that? You know, it's almost like just gratuitous. They're making it just to make some kind of gratuitous point. And I think fair play to you, because nobody's going to listen to it. If you think they are, you're bonkers.
Yeah, we said that at the outset of the Comedy Slab, and turned out we were right.
That was our marketing pitch, wasn't it? Really?
Nobody's going to listen, and here we are.
And if you
all those episodes later, yeah.
I mean, this is interesting, isn't it? Because you kind of find you'll have roles for people who are, you know, I don't know, maybe dying of cancer, who haven't actually got cancer, so they won't be able to do that. You're not allowed to play anyone who's bald if you're not actually bald. Like I say, you're not allowed to play anybody who's overweight if you're not actually overweight. I mean, where do you go? You know, the people who make fat suits for actors are presumably thinking, well, that's us finished then. I don't know what we're going to do now.
Well, I was immediately thinking about method actors, darling, who actually will put on weight for a role when they need more weight. So is that immoral?
Well, no, I don't have. I mean, I think there is a bit of weirdness about method acting, isn't there? I think even actors think that is a bit weird.
Oh, some fellow actors who aren't. Yeah. I worked on a play once with 2 blind characters in it. Now, here's the thing: these days, would it be in some productions there might be a requirement for them to actually be blind? As it was, because certainly I'm not sure if both of them were method actors, but
right.
I recall the male actor, there was a couple who were both blind in the play, but they were both sighted actors, and the guy had actually put in contact lenses so he couldn't see for the duration of, as long as he had them in while he was recording.
Kind of get that though, don't you? That is a different, that's a different thing from saying I'm not blind, therefore I can't do it. It's like, how can I?
It's slightly different, but I think, I mean, I could think of at least one blind presenter I've worked with who I think would take exception to it. Because the point is, you don't suddenly become a blind person in 5 minutes because you put in contact lenses that stop you seeing. You have to live as a blind person to know what a blind person goes through.
But isn't that the point of acting? Is that you're able to assimilate and take on the character's characteristics, as it were. And who is it for somebody else to be offended by that? I don't get that at all. It's like if somebody played a bald person, and I'm not trying to compare being bald with being blind, but equally, that's all I've got.
Well, they begin with B and end with D.
Yeah, and
have an L in.
But so I'm offended. So what? As Ricky Gervais says, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's on Twitter now. It's rent an offence, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
I'll find an offence so I can get angry.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, I think she's changed her career and she's going into artist management or something like that. Or
is she?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that was the upshot of the article. I mean, I don't even know whether the story's true. We're sitting there talking about it, and you kind of think, you know what I mean?
We take it on trust.
Yeah, it's in all the papers, so it's been sold across all of them. So you're not really quite sure whether that is the case. All I will say to you is that if that's your opinion, good luck casting the Elephant Man. And
so if you're not an elephant, you can't actually do it.
Or a man. Yes, we'll have no hippopotamus women in here. Thank you very much. But there you go. It's a funny old world, isn't it? Anyway, on with the podcast. Oh, yes. Look, I've gone all posh.
You have southern.
My turn to choose last week, and I chose Rev. I chose Series 2, Episode 2. Just because I could, really. An episode called The Talented Curator, if you want to hunt it down and find it and have a watch yourself. Although, as I said, we will be playing a couple of clips as well. I didn't know. I can't remember. Had you caught up with this or not?
It was TV dinners for a while in the Lacey household when there was a Mr. and Mrs. Lacey under the same roof. And it was a nice default to go to. It even became part of our, if you will, lingua franca, referring to vicars as vicarage, which is a little tick of one of the characters.
Fabulous little tick, isn't it, as well? Really
it's
nice.
Great. It's really so nice. And then I saw a shot and it fell into place, which it probably should have fallen into place 10 years ago when it was actually first produced, which is it says vicarage on their home, which is, of course, a vicarage. And I wonder whether he's got it from this brass plate because, we go to the dentist, if they have a brass plate, it'll have the name of the dentist on. I don't know.
I always kind of assumed that he thought that vicar was a shorthand term for vicarage. Do you know what I mean? He's like
well, it's great, but we've got our own reasons, which is fine.
But a vicar's real title is a vicarage. It's kind of what you said.
Title.
Yeah, and he was like, he has to be formal. So, all right, vicarage.
I like vicarage.
Brilliant stuff. Anyway, should we have a clip first, and then
I think we should,
and then we can have a headline, and we can get well underway. First clip I've chosen is I wasn't writing at the start actually this time, but I thought it was a nice little setup for what's to come in the episode. The Archdeacon is showing Adam, who's our vicar hero, the Rev, the title. Pictures of a curate and her biog and stuff like that he wants to send to his parish when Adam's wife walks in.
Who's this?
Abigail. The Archdeacon's got a curate who wants to join me for second curacy. This is great. I'll be able to achieve a lot more with another priest. Push through some more of my plans.
Yeah, she's pretty, isn't she? It'd be nice for you to have her around to help you.
No, Alex, this is good. I'll be able to impart some of my wisdom.
I can see you imparting your wisdom at her.
Ab is one of our bright stars. Very able, very, very able. Highly intelligent, terrific communicator, and a popular touch. I think she's really going to be able to help Adam out.
Be good to have someone to talk to on my level.
Have you read her PhD on neo-orthodoxy and realistic dialectical theology? It's impossible to put down.
Was it?
Yes. It's high time you were a training priest. We've all been saying so for a while.
Have you?
Oh, yes, we all have. Oh, you can help her flourish. Guide her, enable her.
Yes, I bet he will.
And Alexandra, a curate, will be able to cover services so you and Adam can have some much-needed quality time together. A weekend in a boutique hotel.
Oh, well, in that case, I think she's completely brilliant. Appoint her immediately.
You'll be wanting a headline or maybe a biblical quote. Would be more appropriate. I don't know.
What's that?
Well, I don't have the latter, so I'm going to go with something like the Right Reverend, or something like it's irreverent, but it's also glorious.
Oh.
I don't know, there's different variations on a theme, but it was nice to come back to it. I've got one or two worries. We'll get into those. Of course, it's not perfect, but enjoyable. And isn't Olivia Colman delightful there? Just the right amount of sarcasm and irony going on.
I think I was going to say I think they were really lucky with casting. I think they were really shrewd with casting. It's probably a better phrase, because it's not luck, is it really, in terms of when it works like that? But I mean, they kind of really bounce off each other, don't they? In terms of believability and.
Did you deliberately choose that word? Because later on, Abby, who's beautifully named anyway, the talented curator of the episode title, says, I look forward to bouncing with you, or words to that.
It was his reaction I liked. I can't remember what it was. Was it like a whimper or something? I can't remember. But we kind of almost like visualised it, yeah. But do you know? And it put me in mind. Let's just spool back a second before this. I kind of did a bit of research on ecclesiastical sitcoms, because I had in my own mind there are quite a lot of them.
And did you struggle, other than if you'd have to go back to when Britain was arguably a more religious nation?
Well, yeah, I think probably. Well, I suppose like yesterday and the day before. Well, let me take you through some of them. All Gas and Gators, which is a really old one.
I haven't seen that for what feels like centuries.
Yeah, probably an episode would feel like a century as well, wouldn't it? Now I don't know. It'd be interesting to see.
It would look somewhat dated, I think.
But then you've got things like Oh Brother, Derek Nimmo. Didn't he do an Oh Father as well? I think something like that.
Could be.
The Flying Nun. Do you ever remember that one with Sally Field?
Yeah, that one passed me by, literally over my head, I should think.
I saw a screenshot from it, and I will never unsee it again. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
I'm going to look for it now.
Bless Me Father, which was an Arthur Lowe vehicle. I think that ran about 3 series.
Arthur Lowe?
Yeah, as in Captain Manor in Dad's Army, yeah. Arthur Lowe. Or If You're a Parent, the Mr. Men. Vicar of Dibley, of course, who can forget.
Of course, yeah, that's a more recent one.
Father Ted I mentioned, didn't I? And then 2 very recent ones, Good Omens, which of course we slabbed. And one that we haven't slabbed, which is set in heaven, I think, is an American sitcom called The Good Place with Ted Danson. There weren't as many as I thought. But there's quite a few, isn't it, on one subject, really?
But considering it's a big subject, I think, I mean, there used to be a phrase in our youth. It passed out of being a sort of colloquial phrase that never talk. Well, maybe it was when I was first in radio. Maybe you'll identify with this. They say don't talk about politics, religion, or football. And as soon as I'm told I can't talk about something, of course, that's the very thing I want to talk about, apart from football, probably, which I don't understand. I leave that to you and the professionals. But was that a thing when you started out in radio?
Only as a light heart. I mean, I've heard it as a light-hearted quip, but never as a serious instruction, as it were.
Right. Oh, maybe I missed the irony of it, but and to be honest, I probably heard it only when I started out in voluntary radio before I persuaded someone to pay me for it.
I mean, oddly, in the modern world, I mean, we were just talking about in the comedy news about taking offence. In the modern world, it seems that Christians are probably now really in the background of being offended, aren't they? They seem to be the least offended out of most groups these days, or certainly you don't hear about it if they are offended.
Well, that might be a measure of how church has moved more into the background. Of course, if you're involved in the church, you won't agree with that. But in terms of numbers, and I mean, how do you measure these things? It's never a perfect stat to talk about church attendance, because loads of people will say, well, I don't need to attend church to be a Christian, or indeed any other religion. But as far as I know, that's generally been in decline. It might have little peaks and troughs within it, but I think that's been in decline since our youths, probably. I don't know. There is offence taken there, but it depends how you read it. And of course, we're talking about the church as if it's one great homogenous thing. There was a hymn, the Church of what was it? The Church of God United or something is I used to have to sing it at school. The church is one foundation. Well, it ain't. It's hundreds of foundations. There's the huge divide, which you and I exemplify, if we want to dig into that one, Protestant and Catholic. And then, of course, each of those has subdivisions, and each of those, you'd be on a spectrum. Are you liberal? Are you evangelical? Are you hard line? Are you fundamentalist? And so it goes, and so it goes. I mean, human beings are tribal, as we've observed before. I don't hear an awful lot of offence, but again, is that because the public profile is lower? I don't know.
I mean, I did kind of notice it, and there was that kind of a bit later on, and we'll cover this in the second clip. But he inadvertently takes ecstasy, doesn't he? A bit later on, as you do. And
we've all done. Oh, no, we haven't.
He kind of starts with a prayer and then says, "I'm off my head," or he doesn't put it quite as politely as that.
Yes.
And there was this kind of inference that religious experience is close to a drug-taking experience. And I did actually put in my notes. I wonder how many complaints they got about the show, about this particular episode, or about even the show in general, because it does portray being a vicar in the inner city, warts and all, doesn't it? I mean, there's no glamour to it, is there, in that sense?
Not really, but that starts to get to where I felt a little bit needled, because I think they push that a little too far. I know you've got to go for the laughs in a comedy, and happily there are laughs there. But I think they overdo that because it comes up more than once. But clearly they've chosen. That's why I say in my headline, there is an irreverence to it, and I don't think it could be truly popular in a mostly secular society if it didn't have this sort of ironic distance from the role of vicar. Did you not feel that it's a bit of a cheap thing? Okay, he smokes, he drinks, he does MDMA, all in one episode, all in half an hour. Yes, there will be vicars who smoke. Whether they swig MDMA with the local tramp, I don't know. But didn't you feel they were pushing the envelope just a bit too far?
Well, again, I mean, it is, to use a phrase, and not trying to be ironic in any way, but it is a broad church. If you think of my lot.
No, that's a separate series on ITV.
Yeah, broad church, yeah.
It did have Olivia Colman in, if I remember correctly.
But yeah, my lot, they're not even allowed to take a wife, are they? Or they weren't. Certainly, I don't know what the latest is these days in the Catholic Church. So
no,
to see a vicar smoking would be something that you'd be like, wow, I didn't think that happened. But I know in the C of E, or Church of Emptiness, as we used to call it.
You rotter! I'm going to start defending my lot, even though I'm not really one of them.
I know, normally. Again, it's that tribal thing, isn't it? But the whole thing of, I mean, in fairness and contextually, he does smoke occasionally. He doesn't seem to buy any. Does he? Smokes Collins by the look of it most of the time.
Right.
He drinks a little bit, and he took MDMA. He took ecstasy inadvertently.
Yes.
So it's not as if he's a rampant drinker, smoker, and drugger, is it? Really?
Well, it's just that unusually, the reference to TV dinners sort of points that out. Unusually, I watched more than one episode of this. This is when I had more time to do such things, and I suppose sort of encouraged by, the fact it suited both of us sitting down to watch TV at the end of the working day or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do remember at least one other scene where, they end up having a sort of a clubbing night inside the church with flashing lights. And guess what? He does drugs and he's off his face or other parts of his anatomy. So it's a recurring theme, but I'm fully aware that people might be shouting at their podcast playing devices and saying, well, you've got to have a flawed character. Otherwise there's no comedy, is there? There's no, you've got to have the essential tragedy. I heard someone talk about the Muppets once and go through each of the characters and say, well, Miss Piggy is a tragic character. You've got to have that tragedy. She loves Kermit, but he's the wrong species.
Yeah.
So there has to be, the Reverend has to be flawed. Otherwise there's no joke, is there, if he's perfect?
Or is it about being flawed, or is it about him trying his very best to, I mean, he's kind of tried everything else and trying his very best to sort of garner a flock. He tries to.
Can you say that, garnering a flock?
I think you
at
can.
this time of the evening.
Well, as long as nobody else is involved and the flock's consenting, I don't see it's a problem.
I'm more worried about the garnering.
Yes, and I don't know, the whole, doing what he does in his behaviour is to try and assimilate into the community that he's trying to serve. Is the way I read it anyway. Is that he's doing his best to fit in and to to try the things that he thinks will make him successful as a vicar and his church successful.
Right. Well, I mean, to some extent, we're all allowed whatever version of a show that we want. We take away from it what we will. I see it not quite that way, although I'll chew over that now, you having raised that as a possibility. I see it more as a flawed character who's always trying to do a bit better. And then, the rule of sitcom is all characters never learn anything ultimately and end up back where they were at the end of the episode, or at least ready for the next episode. So they don't change, which is unlike, say, a film where you do generally see some character transformation, particularly more serious drama. Now we're talking about his flaws. We should say the talented curate. The point is she's perfect, and that's a great foil for comedy, didn't you find? That this new woman, as well as being good-looking, intelligent, all of those things, she's obviously very good at the job. Oh, and the final insult to the Tom Hollander character, the Reverend himself, is to pop into the church one day and she's playing Bach beautifully on the piano. So she's a concert pianist as well to boot.
Yeah, and I like that because he was praying at the time, wasn't he? Like he was just like a kind of the voice in his head. But he was saying, "Oh God, why have you sent her?" Kind of actually talking to God and asking her why he sent her. That was quite funny in terms of, he's even in his insecurity in his own head, he's still religious. But yeah, I mean, it was perfect, wasn't it? Because he became paranoid and he started. I mean, it was beautifully set up. I mean, it was beautifully. I thought it was beautifully written. And I mean, considering it's written by 3 people, then I mean, normally they say 2 people is the best writing partnership. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe 3. Maybe that third wheel brings you that sort of oversight and changes the whole dynamic of the things. I mean, I'll say the 3 writers. I mean, 2 of them certainly. I mean, James Wood, of course, who wrote Cold Feet and Quacks and
he's written everything. So
Ambassadors, with Mitchell and Webb. The other 2 writing credits are Tom Hollander and Sam Bain, who of course wrote Fresh Meat and Peep Show and Mitchell and Webb as well. So I never at any point, I've got a bit of it's a bit like your gaydar. I've got a bit of a radar for this.
Oh, you wouldn't let it lie.
I do. I've got a bit of a dialogue dar.
Where you say to your wife, they wouldn't say that.
Yeah, and I just it really jars with me. I just kind of think, no, he wouldn't say that as a character. It's all through that episode. I never. Got even when Colin's selling the line, like, he said, "What are you doing with those squirrels?" He said, "Oh, I sell them down at Kebab Universe." you believe it, don't you? Because of the character that he is.
Don't tell me I believe it. I don't know. But I laughed at least. So maybe I want to believe it because it's funnier if you do. If you don't believe it, then it does stick out. I
mean, it's not complex, is it, as a storyline? I mean, she's like this kind of cuckoo in the nest, isn't she? And she's been dropped in by the Archdeacon, and I love the guy who plays the Archdeacon. I think he's awesome, isn't he? Now
talk about gaydar. Come on, that hairstyle, that gets my gaydar going.
Oh, does it?
He's definitely meant to be a gay character.
Oh, okay. Do
you not get that?
I didn't pick that up at all. No.
I see you. If you only went to heaven with me on Friday. Oh, hang on. No, I don't go there. But the Reverend's going to heaven, obviously.
You see. If they don't look like Leo Sayer, that's the only thing that gets on my head. But yes, Simon McBurney, who plays the Archdeacon. I mean, he's
fabulous. I think one of the strongest characters, if not the strongest.
He's like wicked, conniving.
Oh, he's got. I mean, you could imagine, and this will get me thrown off, if nothing else will, off my own co-podcast with you. You could imagine if Nazism came in, he'd want to be in the Gestapo, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I think he'd want to be high up in the hierarchy, and not low down in the lowerarchy.
I mean, the whole way. I mean, the way he sells it, you kind of think, in that clip that we first heard, is he relishing the fact that he knows that he's dropping this bomb into his parish?
Now you say that, and yes, now you get to the end of the show, you think, oh yes, this is actually an Abbey bomb, isn't it?
Yeah. The way he delivers the lines, like I say, you kind of think, he's not an altruistic person. So he's not doing this for Adam's benefit, is he? Anything he's doing.
Although he might try and PR it that way.
Yeah.
But did you? I found myself researching neo-orthodoxy. I don't know if I got as far as with realistic dialectical materialism or whatever it was, but she'd written a thesis on it, and he said I couldn't put it down.
I know.
Only slightly tongue in cheek.
I know. I love it.
And sorry, hats off to Amanda Hale. Arise, Saint Amanda, who plays Abby Johnson. I thought she's just marvellous and utterly believable. Again, it's good casting, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, she just got that, she was nice. She was talented. She was popular. But she managed to just do that hint of weirdness as well, where you wouldn't take the lock off the knife drawer. Do you know what I mean? That kind of.
I didn't feel that, but I know I would be wanting to head for the knife drawer if I had to work with her in a confined space for too long, because you want her to do something wrong, don't you? You want her to prove she's a flawed individual like the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'm not a fan, as I think we've had this conversation before. I'm not a fan of organised religion, having been through it and come out the other side. But I do find this riveting, to the point where at one point I actually caught myself with my mouth open watching this. That kind of like the whole of the face was disengaged because I was using up all the brain and the eyes to watch what I was and listen to what I was doing. So yeah, it's I found it compelling. I mean, I don't know whether it's the acting, the casting, the writing. I suspect it's probably a mix of all three, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, as I tend to say, if something's good, everything's got to be good, hasn't it? Direction, camera work.
Yeah.
Because if any one of those links in the chain is weak, you're going to spot it, and it's going to ruin the other links in the chain.
Should we have another clip before we?
I think it's high time.
Before we dig our own grave, and
probably too late for that. That ship has sailed.
It's a long time ago, Captain. Colin, who is we were talking about the guy, is one of the parishioners who calls the vicar vicarage. Has spiked his own alcohol, which is a weird thing to do. Whilst he and the vicar are in the church grounds, they're out there shooting squirrels with an air rifle. I could tell you the backstory to that, but it would just take too long. Yeah. It's just trust me, that's what they were doing. And the vicar realises that this drink that he's had contains whiskey and various other spirits, and also contains MDMA or ecstasy. Although it does seem to loosen his inhibitions during a service that his new curate is leading.
Hey, everyone. I'm so excited about today's service. It's so wonderful to have so many of you here due to Abby, who is a wonderful, beautiful, special person. Intelligent, lovely, charming, clever, wonderful, and beautiful. So come on up here, Angel, and start things off.
You can be the great multitude who followed Jesus down the mountain to meet the leper. Try and look like a multitude, whatever that looks like. Mel, can you pretend to be the poor leper for me? You've got like horrible scratchy skin. Scratchy. Scratchy. Yeah, that's it. That's great.
I'm a leper too. Look, my fingers, lips are dropped off.
Okay, I'm Jesus and I heal you.
Well, she almost literally is Jesus in terms of the hierarchy of the church. Or she certainly walks on water, it seems, in this episode. I would say that, I mean, it's meant to be this way, but it's utterly excruciating to see Adam Smallbone, the Reverend Adam Smallbone, pretend to be a leper. Did that get you in the guts?
It was Olivia Colman's reaction that sold it for me with that one, was that she's like, because she's in the congregations and she you can see she's sitting there thinking, what on earth is he doing? Because she doesn't know he's had ecstasy.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that's what I say. It was a wonderful journey, wasn't it? It was a wonderful roller coaster. It's just so well constructed, the whole episode, I thought.
Beautifully crafted. But then, as we've gathered, the writer really knows what he's doing. The main writer, James Woods.
Yeah. I mean, even to the point where the very last scene, which I won't spoil for people if they want to go away and watch the episode, but the very last scene, you know, they don't end it on a laugh. They end it on a really sweet moment, don't they?
Yeah, it's exquisitely tender, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, it's Olivia's reaction. She's, to me, I just find her mesmerising. How she's reacting to what's going on.
Oh, sorry, we've got to mention Miles' job.
Oh well, yeah, but it's an embarrassment of riches. I'd forgotten, not witches, riches.
Yeah,
I'd forgotten. Ranulph Fiennes is in it, for goodness' sake. Not this episode, but at least one of them. But anyway, yeah, Miles Jupp, he's a regular character, and he's spiffing.
He's just like he's full of venom and vitriol, and you know he thinks he's underutilized, doesn't think he's appreciated enough, and he just plays. It's just perfect, isn't it? The way that he gets all that across. I'll tell you, he wasn't in this episode, and I can't remember what it is, what the character name is, but I remember him being hypnotic as well. Jimmy Akimbola's also in this, isn't he? A bit later on, who played Koji in Kate and Koji, that ITV thing. Oh,
right. Yeah, sorry. Are you saying in this episode?
No, he wasn't in this episode. I'm not sure whether he was in this series, actually, or whether he came a bit late, because there were 3 series in total. But he kind of played a waif and stray, a bit like Colin, but with very obvious mental health issues. And again,
I remember. He comes to the door, doesn't he, of the vicarage?
Yeah,
and you can see, yes, he's a troubled individual.
And if you watched him back to back, if you watched him in Rev, and then watched him in Kate and Koji, you just kind of think, night and day, what a range.
Well, that's why I didn't make the connection, but also it's going back to my viewing of 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's clearly got the range, and talented individual. Is the title The Talented Curator? Is there some sort of allusion to the talented Mr. Ripley or something like that, do you think? She's obviously got talent, but
feels like there should be, doesn't it? Or the curate's egg or something. There's something, yeah. There's
I did that gag last week.
Yeah. It went down about the same, didn't it? I think, as I recall.
Well, it's only thee and me. It's not a very big audience,
true,
to be honest.
True, but harsh.
harsh, but unfair.
Harsh, but not very fair.
Yeah.
Shall we have some scores then?
I think it's got to be that moment, surely. Shall I go first? It's a 4 from me.
Oh.
I'm wondering if you're going to slightly best that with the 4.5, but I think it's more likely, knowing that you're slightly meaner. But it sounds like you could be a 4.
It's exactly what it would be for me as well. We could. It's nice to know that we could sit down like those days gone by and have dinner together on our knee and watch an episode of Rev and both be equally satisfied.
Well, only one knee between us.
Oh, even better.
That's weird, but yes, we don't agree on too many things in life: politics, art, comedies. But it's nice when it happens.
Not religion. 8 out of 10 for Rev. Then it's interesting enough. This is another Kenton Allen creation, isn't it? Another big talk.
Big talk
production for the BBC. Yeah.
Just before I go, sorry, I meant to pick up. Did you get a sort of biblical reference or a sort of hint of it in Adam's name, Adam Smallbone?
No, is this taking the bone from Adam and
the rib,
creating
the rib?
Yeah.
I assume it's that. And again, I might have a slight complaint. It's a little unsubtle, but if it didn't upset you, then it can't be too unsubtle.
No, I was trying to then think of the connection between Adam and Alexandra, which is Olivia Colman's character, but I gave up then. So
we might be digging too deeply. It might just be. Yeah,
you can try too hard, can't you?
You can. She's called Alex because she's called Alex.
Anyway,
get over it.
Homework for next week?
Well, if I was to say that we might need some aerated ceramic bricks to counter the title of the show, would that mean anything to you?
No.
Good. My ploy worked.
It's a ploy.
It's a ploy, yes.
That's in the West Midlands. That's something you see on the stage, you know.
I was thinking that's what they said to my mum when I was born. But
It's a ploy.
Slightly misheard. Anyway, ceramic bricks draw out the damp from a building.
Oh, yes.
So we are talking
rising damp.
We are talking rising damp, and it being our closest esipode, as we will be speaking and recording, to Christmas 2021, although we hope the show, as with other shows, remains in our archive indefinitely. I'm going for the Christmas edition of Rising Damp, Leonard Rossiter vehicle, classic from the 70s, and if you haven't seen it, if you can find a way of seeing it, you'll put all the details in there, won't you, Shane, as ever? But this episode is called, technically it's Series 2, Episode 8, otherwise known as For the Man Who Has Everything. I think that's an allusion to what would have been an ad slogan then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or am I slightly confusing it? Oh, no, actually, I'm confusing it with an aftershave, which was for a man who didn't have to try too hard.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you voiced that. I forgot.
Yes.
So, once again, Rising Damp, For the Man Who Has Everything, Series 2, Episode 8. That is your homework.
Like it. Don't forget, if you want to catch up with the Comedy Slab, you can do on Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeart Radio. Spreaker is our preferred platforms. Which we're both wearing right now, and if you could, it helps us out immensely. But you can see a visualization version on YouTube as well. If you can't, do be careful with that, by the way, because remember one of the comments we had once on YouTube. Somebody said, "I love this. I watch it while I'm driving round during the night." And I thought, I hope you're not. But
no, we don't really want to encourage that. But I have known it. I've been in cabs in the dead of night.
They got the old TV on.
Yeah, well, that's the trouble with. In fact, technically, I don't think it's currently outlawed, except you might get done for careless driving.
Careless whisper.
It is
Yeah.
careless rumours.
Yeah. I think the only danger is if you're watching a film and suddenly there's a car chase, and you get confused as to which one you should be looking at. That could be quite nasty, couldn't it? You know, if Bullet's on, and and you're going through the West End of London, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're doing 100 mile an hour through San Francisco. That could be quite nasty, but
could be very nasty. So yes, don't drink and drive, and don't watch and drive, but by all means listen and drive. Quick mention for anti-social media. On Twitter, we are at Comedy Slab, naturally enough. We also have a Facebook page, and that is at Comedy Slab, naturally enough. If you could follow us on the former and give us a big thumbs up and a like on the latter, that would be wonderful. Personal recommendations, also hugely appreciated. Friends and families, hopefully family members will appreciate your taste in podcasts as well. And lastly, but in no way leastly, a nice juicy star rating on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, call it what you will. That'd be great too, and a bit of blurb to say why you enjoy the show, as indeed we hope you do. So thank you in advance.
Call it what you will. They do every other week. And so from me, just to prove that I am quite at home giving and taking offence in equal measure, I'm going to be stripping off all my clothes, covering my entire body in black makeup, and running out into the street and saying, "How's that, madam, for a crispy sausage?"